Hello. In tonight's video, we are going to review using xpath in transforms and assigns to use functions that are available to manipulate the data in ways that we might need done. I have open a transform that is referencing a XSL file that is grabbing data from the database collection that I have gotten and then transforming it as I need. And of course, this is just an example to show how it's done. Basically, this is the PEPL, and we have some data that we're getting from the database. And if we go over to SQL Plus, we can see that first we're getting the employee or the customer information, I should say, and then the orders for that customer. And here, for example, is just some data about the values in the table, sum and average, which we'll be working with. And here we have our working version here. And we invoke that and get the data, and then we assign the customer information, a concat length. And I've just gotten this broken up so that we can see basically how it's done, and it's not too much information in one particular assign, otherwise it'd be rather large. Here's the assign transforms, and here's a transform for dates. So we'll just quickly look at the concat, for example. Here you can see that we're concatenating and putting it into a string, the first name and last name, and I believe it's last first. Yeah, there we go, with a comma in between, comma space. This is just the length. And I think also in this one we're actually doing the length of the email, and then we're doing a lowercase and an uppercase on the last name. An index within, which might be useful for a substring, but looking for a particular value. And let's see what I've got here. So I'm looking for the @ symbol in an email. Assign substring and assign substring before. The assigned substring, or the assign, the substring itself is an xpath variable, but I don't find it to be extremely useful in the regards that it's a little bit harder than to use. The assign before, substring before or the substring after is a much easier function to work with. Here you have that one. And then I have the transform of a math and the transform of dates. So we're going to run this, and we'll go over a little bit about how it works. So just here we are with Enterprise Manager, and I'm going to put in, Enterprise Manager, sorry, I got it mixed up with WebLogic. Putting in a 2N, and we're going to run it. It runs in less than 2 seconds. And here's the flow. Now, as I open these things up, it does bounce a little bit, but basically we have the customer information, which if we look, you can see that it is each assign is developing. Here's the first two. Let's see. The first one, open up. There it goes. So we just do one. And then the second one, we get a little bit more data. Or actually, this is the third. I skipped one. And if we go to JDeveloper, we can quickly take a look at the customer information. I believe this is 4 of them. And it's just pulling the data over, which is quite easy to do. That's one of the nice things about this. I mean, it's a great GUI tool to be able to just pull the data from one side to the next and have it work. Although I think there are limitations with xpath, at least supported within JDeveloper and SOA Suite, that could be worked on. Let's see, what else are we doing? So we have a concat length and assign within. Let's go back. And so let's take a look at some of those. So here's the concat payload. Bounces around, so my apologies. Here's king comma space Steve. Assign length. I'm just going to open up this one because that shows up all of them. So again, it bounced around. So here we are. So the length is 24. That's the length of the email. We have the uppercase and the lowercase, which was the assign example, which I showed you. Here's the index within, and it's looking for where the at symbol is. And again, it bounced around, so it's at the 5th element. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I would say that's the 6th element, but if this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then if 0 is the start, which it is in XPath, then it would work fine. Now here's the assigned substring. And the assigned substring was to look for the at symbol and then give the substring for it. And again, because it starts with 0, it's kind of off to the side. So the assigned before, substring before, I'm sorry, is a little bit more reliable. That gives sking, which if we look in JDeveloper, here's the assigned substring. And you can see that it's looking for the email and the index. Oh, it's looking for the index of the cat of the at symbol. And then here's the assigned before, which is just easier to use. I mean, just looking for it shows you what's before, so use that. Okay, now if we go over to transform math, transform math is using this XSL, and just have a number of functions here. Unfortunately, it's really quite hard to read. I don't know if this is something they can work on, but you know, it might not be worth it for them. But you can look here, or you can kind of look in the properties window too for the information. Click on it and then look at it. Here's the sum, and that's just taking account. Here is the average. Now the average itself, they don't have a mathematical function for average. So if we open up the average, it's kind of interesting how we do it. We can pull over and get a sum, and then pull over and get the count, and then divide that, and I have a round here. You can take the round out if you need to, but it just rounds it. So that's interesting that you can do that, and even though they don't seem to have an average over here, you can relatively quickly create one. This is the min and max, nothing surprising about those two. Now down here, yeah, there's nothing here, just assigning the values from the database table over to the other side. So if we go down to our thing here and we can look at the transform math. Okay, so oh, down here, sorry. Excuse me. So we've got the sum of 986, the count of 6, 164 is the average rounded. Let's see, where is my SQL plus here? 164, 986 is the total price sum. And the min is 76 and the max is 543. So here's the max and here's the min. So it works fine. It's good enough. It's not very complex. Be nice if they had average there. I'm not satisfied with the date functionality in XPath. At least the version that seems to be supported in Oracle SOA Suite. For example, they don't have a very easy to use date subtract. So you have two dates and you want to know how many days in between. In research that I've done, you can create custom Java files or classes that do the jobs, but it should be quite simple, and it's not. But we can take a look at that. So because manipulating dates and getting timers to work properly based on a certain date is quite important, or to figure out how much time has elapsed is very important. So let's take a look at JDeveloper and look at the transformation dates. And here you can see that I've just got an XPath of getting the data to the date. This is date time. This one's rather interesting and because we take the current date and then format it, and then the current date and format it, and current date and format it, and actually get the, let's take a look, get the year, month, day out of it so that we can format it. And I know there is a formatting thing over here for dates, but I just thought it would be fun to do it this way. But it shows that you can, in fact, put these things together. Here's the one we're working with in the GUI. And we first get the month from the date time, then the day from the date time, and then the year, and we're putting forward slashes in between it. And so we can get that data. And so there is, it's flexible, in other words. All right, let's take a look here. Now I know that this is really kind of a mess, in fact, because they're all close together and they're kind of hard to read. But this is getting just the date time of the ordered and moving it over to here, getting the year. We're adding a year, adding a month, adding days, subtracting. The diff, again, it's very difficult to work with. The dates between the time between two dates is between. I suppose that I could do something with is this less than or greater than, and is it between them? Between the two, is this true and is this true? Then yes, it's between it. But I haven't put that together, but I think it's quite possible. So let's take a look at our data here. Now, okay, so today's date is 2008-14. This is the date time. And this is what I put together by getting the day from date time, or month from date time, day from date time, and year from date time. Now this one is interesting. This is kind of, it put together fine. Let's see, where was that? This is the custom date concat. Excuse me. I think that's up here actually. Here we go. And let's move this out of the way because that's interrupting. It takes, let's take a look at that. Custom date concat, because that was just too hard to read. Using the XML is almost easier in a way, don't you think? So you take the concat, the date is, obviously it worked in regards to it didn't, it was able to compile. Unfortunately, however, the data that we return is NaN, and I haven't found any reasonably good ways of doing this that are simple, which is the whole idea behind doing SOA Suite. It's supposed to be simple. Okay, so the date ordered is this, the date sent is that, year from date is 2010, add a year, actually we added 3 years, so we got 2013, 8/21, add month, we added 3 months, so 8 plus 11, or 8 plus 3 is 11. Added days, I think again I added 3 days, and subtracted, I believe, I'm not sure what I subtracted here. Let's take a quick look. Okay, so we have the date subtract. Again, it's going off the page. Can't quite tell. That's the add, my apologies. Yeah, not very easy, huh? So we'll date subtract. Okay, so it's doing 30 days from the value of the date shipped. So back to the data here. Subtract is 7/23. 8/21, yeah, that kind of makes sense given the fact that there's 31 days in July. So here you can see that it's less than or true, false, less than, greater than works also. Okay, so that's the math. I'm sorry, dates. Um, and it's somewhat limited. It would be nice if they had a very, very easy way of doing it. And I know that I've read on the internet with 2.0 that it's easier. However, SOA Suite seems to be stuck on Style Sheet 1.0 at this point. So I hope that was helpful. Have a good evening.